Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, brought to you, the full-time fan, by our friends at Modelo, Ari and James, and talking with Chancellor Johnson, Big 12 analyst and content creator, also watching us on Big 12 Studios. Hey, Chancellor.
What's going on, fellas? How you guys doing?
Man, we're good. Got a question for you. If you were to take, for your pick to win the national championship, you get Arizona and Houston versus the field. Are you taking Arizona or Houston or the field?
I like that question. You know what? I'm going to go Arizona or Houston. And that's not just me being, a Big 12 guy. That's just how much confidence I have, honestly, more so in Arizona. And in Houston, I certainly believe can win a national championship as well, especially with the level of basketball they're playing right now. But between those two teams, I really like what they bring as far as their balance. They can do it in different ways as well. I like the experience from both teams. You look at Houston with Miles Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, JoJo Tugler, and then the talent that they have surrounding them as far as Chris Nack Jr. and Kingston Flemings, and then Arizona. I think obviously they lost on the road in an extremely tough environment like Kansas, but look, they got to the best starting program history for a reason because of their talent, because of their experience, and because of their overall depth. I like those two. I don't know what the odds are on that. I have to go check that. But I like Houston and Arizona over the rest of the field as of today.
Yeah, and we were talking about this, and we added Michigan too. But honestly, James, if you took out Michigan, I'd probably agree with Chancellor as well.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd take Houston or Arizona over the field as well. Chancellor, one of the things we talked about a little bit with Houston this week is, obviously Kingston Flemings has had a tremendous year. He's been really good. But it's had an impact on Milos Uzan. And, here's a guy that was thinking about going to the NBA after a great run last year. Some of his scoring and numbers are static from last year, but the percentages are way down. His 3-point field goal percentage and his field goal percentage are way down. What do you make of that? And, can this team still win a title? Like, I'm just curious it's weird. It feels like Houston hasn't even played that good yet. Like they're 10-1. It's like they're not even that good.
No. Listen, that is extremely fair, and I'm glad you brought this up because I've been kind of talking about this for like months now. And for some Houston fans, they didn't necessarily want to hear it. But to answer your question about like how far can this team go, if Milos Uzan doesn't play to the level that he's that we've seen before. Yeah. I don't know if they can win a national championship without him playing to the level of his talent. Because last year he was a late bloomer as well. Yeah. He came into the program, and admittedly, it was an adjustment process. Going from Oklahoma to Houston and playing under Kelvin Sampson, right? The number of responsibilities that he had on him as far as defensively, trying to make things work with L.J. Cryer at the time, and then the second half of the season hit. They got to conference play, and then his numbers went up, and then his stock in the NBA draft went up, and up until the tournament, he was playing some of his best basketball. And so he tested the waters. And for me, I was thinking about, well, if he follows this trend, as we've seen with a number of Houston Cougars over the past couple of years, Marcus Sasser 2 years ago, then Jamal Shead, testing the waters and coming back. Marcus Sasser became an All-American. He was the Big 12 Player of the Year. So did Jamal Shead, who ended up having that incredible season, was the Big 12 Player of the Year as well. I was thinking, okay, well, if Milos Uzan follows suit, second year under Kelvin Sampson, man, the sky's the limit for this Houston Cougars team. And then you got out of the gate slow. And so we saw the emergence of Kingston Flemings, and to your point, Houston was winning, so everything was fine. But there were moments where you felt like, man, they could have really used Milos Uzan. And then we actually saw a flash of that in their conference opener on the road versus Cincinnati, where Houston was actually trailing the Bearcats. That was Jizzle James' first game back, I believe, at that time. And they were on the road, and they needed him to step up, and he did. And I was like, there it is. There's that Milos Uzan. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, he's just kind of been out there. And I think for a guy of his talent who can do a little bit of everything as far as he can shoot the ball, as we've seen previously at a high level off catch and shoot, can play out Kingston Flemings, can get to the rack and create for others, I just haven't really seen that as much. And talking to Kelvin Sampson about it, they honestly have not been concerned because they've always felt like that's just been the arc of his career, even while he was at Oklahoma, that he gets better as the season goes along. And it's just, as you mentioned, like the numbers are okay, but the actual percentages aren't as much. And so as they get into this tough stretch here, I'm not talking about Kansas State when they play them at home this Saturday, when they have to go on the road to Ames and take on an Iowa State team, when they have to play Arizona next week at home. without Miles Uzan, that's not going to cut it. And so they need him to be at his best level. And so Chris Nack Jr., he's taking a step in his game. JoJo Tugler is actually giving Houston more on the offensive end. Kingston Flemings has tapered off a little bit over the past couple of games, but I have no concerns about him. Emmanuel Sharp, even with Kingston Flemings Kingston Flemings not having his best game last time, he had over 20 points, 8 threes, broke the program record for most threes. Where's Miles Uzan? They need more from him in order for them to get to where they want to go, and that's back to Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even with his struggles shooting the basketball, Kelvin Sampson told us the same thing. Like, he hasn't talked to him about that at all. He knows that'll come eventually. Flemings has been phenomenal. Evan Mia's got him as at evanmia.com as the 4th best rated point guard in the country. But Emmanuel Sharp, I mean, you noted right there, he hit a career-high 8 threes earlier this week against Utah. It's almost like he's almost been forgotten about with the emergence of these freshmen.
Very fair. And if you ask me, I think he's playing at a Big 12 first-team level, and I mean that. And the thing about Emmanuel Sharp, too, is he is one of the best perimeter defenders, and not just in the conference, but in the country as well. He should make a Big 12 defensive team because of the value he brings on that end. But, when it comes to Emmanuel Sharp, with him just breaking Marcus Sasser's record in as far as most threes in program history, I don't know when that record is going to be broken again, especially in this era of college hoops that when you look at the transfer portal and NIL. Emmanuel Sharp is one of the better college basketball players we've seen over the past decade or so. The numbers say that, and his impact on the team has said that, because he's a guy who came in his freshman year, got slow minutes, right? And then his sophomore year, he just had the kind of traditional climb that, frankly, we don't see anymore. And it's important to note because he stayed at Houston all 4 years. And he's embraced the grind. He's embraced learning from the Marcus Sassers and the Jamal Sheds, and to now, taking ownership of this team and being the guy and the glue. And now this year, the heart and soul of this Houston Cougars team. Obviously, Kingston Flemings is the guy as far as the talent. Last year was Juwan Roberts is kind of the heart and soul. This year, Emmanuel Sharp has embraced that. And you can only do that by being in this program and understanding what it takes to win, understanding what it means to play under Kelvin Sampson and what he demands out of you. And on one funny note regarding Emmanuel Sharp, it's funny because Kelvin Sampson admits he has a hard time finding things to pick on with Emmanuel Sharp. So sometimes he told us he has to make things up because he knows that Emmanuel Sharp, he can trust him. He's so reliable, and that's just the impact and the value that he brings to this Houston Cougars team night in and night out.
A really under-the-radar big game this weekend is TCU-Oklahoma State. TCU has 4 Quad 1 wins, but they also have a Quad 2, Quad 3, and even a Quad 4 loss. So they're very much a bubble team. They can get another Quad 1 win with a win at Oklahoma State. But, they're a really intriguing team, and we were just talking about kind of, maybe as a bubble team in a lower seed, like they've got some of the recipe that you need to be, a Cinderella, because they have an experienced backcourt. They don't turn the ball over a ton, and they play great defense. What do you make of TCU?
Yeah, TCU, a massive win for them to get at home over Iowa State, and they were searching for their signature win. And as you mentioned it, they've played in some tough games this year. They were one of the first teams to really give Michigan a run earlier on in that non-conference schedule. If you remember, that's when Michigan was walking through smacking teams by 30-plus points. Yeah. And TCU, they had an opportunity, and they just weren't able to close the deal. And since then, the non-conference schedule was okay. They were able to kind of do enough to float around. Their Big 12 conference schedule has been kind of lackluster up until this moment of getting the win over Iowa State, and they had to really grind that one out. And obviously, I think we all think a lot of the Cyclones team, a team that can go far in the NCAA tournament, and so they kind of tricked off that game where TCU give the Horned Frogs credit. They went on a 12-0 run to end that game, and so they are a dangerous team because as I mentioned, Iowa State is a team not just was playing for a Big 12 conference title. They're a team that they believe can get to a national championship. So a massive win for them. But if TCU getting that win, they're gonna have to stack some wins together. And it's not just TCU. You look at UCF, who's now faltered after back-to-back losses. Obviously going on the road, taking on Houston, that's a tough one to win, right? Coming off of that massive win against Texas Tech, and then they got blown out in the next game by Cincinnati. And so now they come back home and they have to play West Virginia, a team that They have to maybe win these next 3 games versus West Virginia. UCF's going to see TCU, the team that we just mentioned there, and then Utah. They need to kind of stack some wins as well. So, we talk about all the top teams, the elite teams that can get to the Final Four in the Big 12, but, UCF, TCU, and even maybe West Virginia, if they can stack some wins together, and Oklahoma State as well, that are trying to make an NCAA tournament berth.
Yeah, West Virginia and UCF are both 6-5 in Big 12 play, so the winner of that game jumps the other in terms of the league standings. The other game that could be really impactful for the Big 12 is at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth between Baylor and Louisville, because Louisville's a top 25 team. They're top 21 in offensive and defensive rating, according to KenPom. And Baylor, somehow, someway, even with a 13-11 record, find themselves in the top 50 or around 50 in the net rankings. So what type of an impact could that game have just on the league overall and the perception?
Yeah, Baylor, they need this one, man, bad. Especially after a tough loss they had at home to BYU, and I was there for that game. Got a chance to see AJ DeMonson in person, simply phenomenal. And then Tunde Yesufu, right? He had 37 points. He went band for band with AJ DeMonson, a future top pick in the NBA draft. And so they need to string some wins together. They have an opportunity with Louisville coming to Texas, right? It's not necessarily a home game for them, but, they will have some home cooking being in the Lone Star State. And so it's, a top 25 matchup with the Cardinals coming into town. You get one of the best point guards in the country as well, and Brown Jr., who's now putting together some nice games. He had 40 points was the last week or so, and so they need a win. If they have any hopes of getting to the NCAA tournament as well for the Baylor Bears and Scott Drew.
Yeah, so give me a kind of an Iowa State, Kansas, not the Houston, Arizona category, but maybe one of the other teams at the top of the conference that you think could make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Kansas, for sure.
With or without Darren Peterson?
They need Darren Peterson, but I've been very impressed with Kansas and their ability to do it without him. And I think, it's been kind of talked about on the broadcast about without Darren Peterson, it's allowed their other players to really, come out on their own. You look at Melvin Council Jr. Right now, after the game, I wanted to kind of hold off on this, so I'll say it on your guys' show because I like you guys so much. But
nice.
You can make a case that Floyd Badunga is the Big 12 Player of the Year. He's played at that level. If you look at what he's been able to do defensively and the impact he's had on the boards, offensively as well. Melvin Council Jr. obviously having a great game. Bryson Tiller, the freshman, 18 points in that game. He was kind of not talked about as much in that win over Arizona. And so then you add Darren Peterson, if you're able to add him, in this long run. That's a big if right now, and I understand why people might say that, right? But when he's playing, they're certainly a team that can beat anybody in the country, as we saw. Obviously, it was a tough sledding for Arizona trying to do that on Big Monday at Allen Fieldhouse. But for them, knowing, kind of short notice that we're not going to have our best player, the best player in the country when he plays on the floor, and for them to go out and get that win, a gritty win over, the Arizona Wildcats, that just shows you, the growth of this team overall. And so, if you add Darren Peterson, who has shown the ability that he's so good, he's just simply plug and play, right? His ability as far as catch and shoot, on ball, off ball, everything that he brings, even defensively as well. That's why I'm really interested to see that if he's 100%. If is kind of turns to the if man at this point, going on the road in Ames, I think that's a huge game. And something to note too with Iowa State, this is the stretch we'll really get to see. Okay, what do we have in the Cyclones team? Because we talk about the Arizona stretch that they have. Houston's going to have a tough stretch as well, and so does Iowa State. These teams are starting to play each other now, so we'll get a real look at how great these teams are. But I think Arizona, they have the highest ceiling, I would say, out of all the teams, because when Darren Peterson is on the floor, they can simply beat anybody in the country.
Yep, totally agree. Chancellor Johnson, Big 12 analyst and content creator, joins us each week here on Big 12 Today. Chancellor, we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, man. Welcome to Houston. I'm excited to hear you on the call.
You said you're not going to be at that one, which, Chancellor,
See what had happened was, there's other games going. I cover the league as a whole now. I can't just keep it in Houston.
Right.
That's crazy you called me out like that, though. Man, that's crazy. I was kidding.
I won't speculate on why you will be choosing not to attend that game, but we know that you're at all these different Big 12 stops, so love to see your travels as well.
Absolutely. James, are you bringing your brown paper bag? Are you bringing that to the game?
Chance, no. Kansas State is practicing really hard today and tomorrow. They have a very early shoot around, and they'll be dialed in, and it'll be right down the wire like all the other Big 12 games.
Absolutely. Just real quick to that note, can you think of any other team to worse to play than the Houston Cougars after your coach calls you out like that?
Yeah, seriously.
I don't think
at
ever.
Houston. Yeah,
Bruh.
I guess it wouldn't have mattered where, but yeah, you're totally right.
Yep.
Good
That's
luck.
well said. All right, man. See you later. Chancellor Johnson, Big 12 analyst and content creator. Always a good time with Chancellor here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. You're listening to us exclusively on TuneIn, watching on Big 12 Studios.